Welcome back. In this video, we'll talk about how to do the scoring. And again, from Breakout and Pong, you'll find that there's a lot of similarities with how we can deal with it. Now, just to show you what's going to go on here, I've got my score text up here. And if I hit play, and I've got this, okay, so, oops, there we go. I'm using the mouse button to shoot here. You can see the score going up. And I've given these regular aliens 10 points each. Oops, and I died. Don't have new lives yet. And the UFO, I've got it so that it will score 50 points. So shoot, oh, there we go. Yep, so you can see that that went up. And I've chosen a sort of appropriate Space Invaders font, and I'll give you that so that you can use the same one. Of course, you can find your own. I simply Googled Space Invaders font and downloaded that one. So what did we do here? Well, first of all, I guess we should start off with creating our score text. So it was just as simple as going game object, creating a text and then throwing it in there. Okay. And then don't forget when you put that in, okay, this is your I guess your HUD, your heads-up display, and this is where your text is that gets overlaid on your game. And so I simply located that in the top left corner. So remember, once you put that in, you can, where is my thing here? I guess canvas, right? It'll come there. I called it score text. I simply clicked on here, Shift Alt, top left corner, and then I just sort of moved it down a little bit, down and to the right, so it fit in there nicer. I just put score text there so I know what it would be. Reset the name to score text as well. Brought in that font, okay, which I said I'll give you access to, or bring in whatever font you want. Set it to a size, 36 looked about right. And then just always be careful here. If it disappears, it's because of this overflow, and I just set them both to overflow. I'm not 100% sure why you'd want to have it any other way, but if you really needed to contain them into a certain size, I guess that is the issue there. All right, so that sets up the score text. Now, in terms of getting the score on there and updating, a couple things. One is I created a game controller. Okay, and so the game controller was just an empty, so I created an empty here, called it game controller. I tagged it game controller, and that's one of those preset tags. Okay, just put that on there. And onto that, I'm going to put my game controller script. Okay, this one is the one I'll deal with lives as well. Okay, so at the moment it's just got the score on there, and we'll deal with lives in the next video. So on that game controller script that I created, let's go check this one out. Game controller, there it is. So just a script called game controller. I made sure I set my using Unity Engine UI, okay, because we need to have this sort of functionality here. I created 3 variables, and actually only 2 I really need for this one. I got a little bit ahead of myself and started thinking about placing my player after we die and putting in instantiating our new player. So don't worry too much about this one, but I've obviously got to reference my text, and then I need some value to hold my score. And since it's going to be not going to be a decimal number, I just set it to an integer. When the game begins, I'm going to set my current score to 0, okay, and then I just want to make sure that I set up my score. And so I got playerscore.text, right, which is referenced here. A little bit of a string score, put a couple spaces in there just to offset it. And then I have to take this current score and make that into a string. And so with that, it should say score 0. Okay, nothing in my update function because I don't want this updating all the time. It's only going to update when basically this add player score is called. And we saw this in Pong, okay? Same idea. So what I'm going to do is call this function from either when the enemy dies or when the UFO dies. And so I'll show you that in a minute there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the current score, so whatever it is, so it's 0 at the start, but it might be 10 or it might be 50, whatever it is, and then add on whatever the score value is. So this score value will be passed in from the enemy being shot or the UFO being shot. And the reason why I'm doing this is because each of them might have a different value. So as I showed you in my game, I gave 10 for the basic enemy, but the UFO you got 50 points for. So that's why that's important. We don't always want to be going up by, say, 10 points, okay? So I could hard code a number in there, but it's not the best thing to do, okay? It reduces our flexibility. And then, of course, once you've changed the score, you need to update the score, and that's nothing different than what it was above, okay? So this here and this here are the same. Obviously, this only plays once or runs only once at the beginning. This one will run when this add player score is called. So we're not going to call it from this script. We're going to call it from either, like I said, the enemy or the UFO. Okay, so let's go check out, let's go look at the well, it doesn't really matter. Let's go look at the UFO. Okay, now I had to put in two things. These two are new. Okay, so on the UFO one, I put in a public game controller. That is my reference to the game controller script that I'll need to reference to do the add player score. Okay, and the other one is an integer that I've created for points. And that's simply going to be the number of points that the player will receive upon killing this particular enemy. And I made that public so I could change that value in the Unity, right, in the component there, in the inspector. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, so what do I have to do first? Well, remember, we have to grab the actual game controller script that's in the game. And so we can do this right at the start because we just need it, once the game begins, that, enemy is instantiated. Whenever it's created, it will grab a reference to the game controller script. And so this is what we have to do. We have to find the game controller object, and it's the one tagged with the game controller. Okay, this is just so if it's not there, okay, so if it doesn't equal null, just a second here, if the game controller is not equal to null, set it, okay, so set the game controller, and it will grab the script, okay. If it is equal to null, then it says it can't find it, okay. So I'm just sort of thinking here. Sorry, so of course it does find it right here, and if it does find it, okay, because it's no longer null, then it sets the game controller, and this is just our warning that our game controller doesn't exist. Okay, so these two variables that we create, okay, and this start thing, you'll have to put on both the enemy script, and we'll see that in a minute, and of course the UFO script here. Now, just a second. All we have to do down here is when it gets hit by the player shot. So we already have all this here except for one line. Okay, so you should be able to find in your script where it references the player shot. Now, it's going to instantiate the explosion. Before we destroy it, okay, you always want to make sure the object is still there. If you put this below it, then the object's destroyed. It won't continue on because it's gone, right? So you got to make sure that you run this before. And so what is this saying? Well, it's saying, hey, go to the game controller. And so we reference that up here, right, where we've got that script, okay? Sorry for moving around here, but it's got that script. In the game controller script, run the add player score, okay? So that's the script that we put in there. That's the function that we put in on the game controller script. And then you have to put in, right, you're calling this function with this as your argument, so however many points. And so like I said, for the UFO, we want to add 50 points. For the regular enemy, you might want to just add 10 points. And that's what's going on here. Okay, and so that's how it works. The enemy one is going to be almost identical. So the enemy one, I put in the same script, okay. I put in the same game controller and points references here as variables. And down at the bottom, I put the same reference here. Okay, so basically it's the same script twice. So you can just basically copy and paste once you got one working, put it in the other. And the only difference is that if I go to my prefabs, so my UFO, on that script now there should be a spot for points, and I've given it 50 points here. Okay, and on my invaders, because I still haven't fixed this up, it's still using individual things rather than the prefabs, but I've set all the points to 10. Okay, and so again, that's how that works. Now, when I hit the shoot button, okay, 10 points for those, and then as the enemy UFO comes in, now it's up to 90. It added 50 there. So that gives you control over the different points. All right, so that's good for this video. And in the next video, what we want to do is start working on the lives. Okay, so we're going to be able to die a few times, and the game isn't over. And then we can also get sort of a score here. And I'm going to try to make it that we have, instead of a number, which we usually do, we're going to try to do the symbols. Okay, so we'll have 3 of these or whatever players there, so it indicates how many players you've got left. All right, see you in the next video.